Okay, so hello everyone. Okay, so today what we are going to discuss is topic related to code smells. So what are code smells and what are the types? How do they impact our code and how can we get over them? That is what we are going to discuss today. Okay, so this is a code written by me. So if you want to credit me for the creativity, then that will be good. Good. Code should be like water. If it is clean, it's odorless. Okay. So there should not be a smell if your code is written clean. Okay. So let's start. Okay. So what is a code smell? This I have taken from Wikipedia as mentioned here. In computer programming, a code smell is any characteristic in the source code of a program that possibly indicates a deeper problem. Determining what is and is not a code smell is subjective and varies by language developer and development methodology. Okay, so a lot here in this simple definition. So a code smell is basically a characteristic in the source code. So right, it is not actually a problem in itself, but when we look at the code and we see something is happening there, it is actually indicating a deeper problem, which might create problem in future or might even create problem in present. So these are the kind of things that help us identify the future and present problem in the code. Okay, but again, as mentioned in the next line, next statement, determining what is and is not a code smell is subjective. Okay, and varies by language developer and development methodology. So this is subjective, right? So it will depend on the type of language you are using, what is the paradigm that language follows, and what are the developers that constitute your team, and how they actually, what is their preference. Okay, so that depends a lot on. It is a kind of a very subjective thing, but there are some standards that we can think of and we should follow, and it's not like my word is God's word. So if anybody think that it is not correct, can point out right away. It will be helpful to me as well. But what I'm going to go through are the standard code smells, not created by me, but that what I have come across while refactoring the code, as well as while my code was reviewed by other people across that's through the experience that I have collected. Okay, so there are three concepts as in the definition that it is a symptom, right? It is not the problem in itself, but it is the symptom through which we are going to identify the deeper problem. Okay. Thirdly, it is the subjectivity. Okay, it depends on the team and the person who is looking at and the paradigm that code is following. Okay. Okay, so number one and the easiest one, and I think it is like universal code smell. Universal can be claimed as universal code smell. That is duplicate code. Okay, symptom is very easy to identify. Like it could be between inside a method, between separate methods, or even languages like Python and JavaScript, where we have code written in the out of method as well as global scope. So that can happen there as well. Even it can happen between different modules in a multi-modular project, or in multiple services in a microservice environment, right? So maybe we have created separate services that are pretty much the same, but it is only the difference in the APIs that we are going to access, and a little bit difference in the data structure that they are going to work on, right? But the way, the flow, the logic is pretty much the same. That's where I will say there is a duplicate code there, right? Okay, so impact is that it becomes very you can say difficult to fix in such scenarios, or you can say your code or your project becomes hard to maintain, since a single change which you might encounter, or a feature change, or a bug that you found somewhere, needs to be replicated almost at every place. The chances of you mistakenly missing a place or two are high. Okay, so this might create a a problem in the code maintainability, and it is pretty much quite you can say not so controversial code smell per se. So because it is everybody know that that duplicated coding is not right approach. Okay, so next we'll move on to fix. How can we actually fix this code? Okay, so in classes like Java, where we have inheritance, or you can say OOPS concepts are there, so we can easily use inheritance like creating a base class. If we are having separate classes and having the similar code, so we can extract that and move them into the base class. Or if there is a simple piece of code that is not actually doing much, but it is used by almost every class, we can use a default method in the interface that is in Java. Actually, Java, after Java 8, we can actually create default interface methods in our interfaces. So that way, uh, we don't need actually to implement it in every place. Simple change can be made in the. It is a preferred approach in Java because it also helps us to maintain backward compatibility. Okay, so second is if it is the same class, then we can extract it to the new method. Okay, so we say we are having two separate methods, A and B, having certain logic that is duplicate. We can simply extract that part and put into a separate method itself. So there is nothing so special here. If between module move the portion of the duplicate to the core module. So this is kind of a subjective here. So it depends on the approach that a developer prefer, right? It is not a kind of a you can say gold standard here. So everybody has his or her approach, which the one feels is better, and there might be reason for that. So my approach is that there are two things that we can do. One is that if we are in a multi-modular project, then it is quite easy. We can create a core a core module, and move that those kind of stuff that we are actually using in different modules to that core module, and simply access those features from there. Secondly, if we are using say a microservice, there we can have a core jar or something like that, and move that commonly used code to that core jar. There are pros and cons to that, but for now we can this discussion can actually go a lot longer here. I can say that the approach is not universally accepted, and there are flaws to it. So the thing is that we can actually move that code to a core class. For example, say in microservices, those who have worked on backend services must be aware of that there are times that we are actually doing something like accessing SQS in different microservices. So that is pretty much the same that we are going to do across the uh, microservices, and it is almost the same tech stack generally we use for the same purpose. So for message passing, we generally are using SQS. So there could be for other project that could be a Kafka, right? And here it is SQS. So this particular piece of code can be moved to a core util. So there are two advantages to it. One, that you are not actually, if you want to do some change, you can move it there, do change there itself, and then simply do some if change is not backward breaking, so simply move that code to the production and then replace it with the old jar, so it will get changed whenever the new your other project gets reloaded. That jar will be picked there itself. But that apart from that, this is also helpful in, say, if we are going to change the vendor itself. Say if we want to change from SQS to something provided by, say, Azure, or say by other person, so we won't need to actually change that at the multiple places there. We can simply make that change in the core util itself, and from there it will be handled for all the services. So it helps us to make the vendor changes easy as well. So it is a big impact. If we have something like that, we can move to the core place. So by so you can say on the cover it looks a pretty simple code smell, but it can have a deep impact. Okay, So let's move on to the next one. Long methods. Again, this is pretty much not so controversial one. So here, whenever we see a method that is, some say 30 lines, some say 40 lines of code, it's you can see that it's a long method. By long method, it means that you have a lot of thing being done by the in the same method. And to identify that simple thing is a method is there for to do something. By its name itself, it should be clear what this method is doing, right? And that's where when we are doing lot of stuff to achieve that single stuff and doing that in that method itself only, then this is called long method. Okay, so again, impact is pretty evident, like it's reduced readability, increases complexity of the code, plus it increases the chances of code duplication, right? So there are several times that everybody must have faced that you are doing something in one place, and then again there are times when you are doing the same thing again, like reading something from your file. Okay, this is something that everybody does almost a lot of places, right? Or say we are doing some kind of a lot. Not something coming to my mind right away, but there are times that we know that this is stuff can be used by multiple can be used at multiple places. So that way we can actually extract that code and move to say some util or maybe in that class itself, and then it will be used, it will become usable to the other person. If say somebody is going to add some logic that is going to do something same, but he sees that method there, so he is simply going to use that. So it will reduce the maintainability, because since that logic is already there, it is tested, you don't need to actually worry about its validity. It is already tested and tried code. Okay, so you need to worry about the separate changes only. Okay, so that way long methods should be avoided. Quicks are pretty similar, that similar to duplicate code, that the method we should block, first of all identify the logic blocks there. We see something is being done there, we could extract that part, the logic. There's a simple trick I would say that I have come across, is that whenever you feel a urge that this code would become easier to understand had I have added a comment there. Okay, so whenever you feel that there is an urge to write a comment, you should understand that it is the time that you should pull this code out of this method and move this to a separate method, right? And your method is not doing a simple thing, it is doing a lot of stuff, and that's what a long method code smell indicates, and you should actually avoid that. And there could be a problem, say something sometimes, that there are multiple parameters that we are actually manipulating there. Okay, so in the same logic we could be actually manipulating two parameters, so that are needed down on the other logic. Okay, so that there we can actually use some data object kind of thing, which is actually in itself a kind of a code smell, but we'll discuss it later. That later. Okay. So, any question or any thing that anyone else would like to add here? Okay. So since everybody is silent, I would say that everybody agrees with it. Okay. So let's move on to the next. Okay. So this is large class code smell. Okay. So come across in Java library. I've seen several large classes, but so since I already mentioned, it is a subjective thing, so it depends on developer what he is developing, and if he is clear that, because in a class in object oriented programming there is a solid principle, and S is stands for single responsibility principle, right? So if you are sure that your class is actually doing something that is a single responsibility and cannot be broken into multiple responsibilities, then it is okay to actually breach such limits. But for actually to raise an alarm. You can see that kind of an alarm or alert in your mind that whenever you see your code is crossing 300 line of codes, a class is more than 300 line of code, you should actually see if it is actually doing this singular responsibility stuff or not, or is actually doing multiple thing, and that can be moved to the different classes, right? So that's another code smell that's pretty much actually universally accepted. Okay, so what are its impact? Again, hard to keep track of all the fields and real usages of program, because since you must be know that there are times that we are actually using fields in our classes, which are actually in itself should be avoided, I would say, because it create problem in concurrency. Okay, so these should be avoided, but sometimes we need that situation, and we are not actually worried about concurrency situation, because that's handled or taken care of while writing the code of that class. But the situation is that, say you have a lot of code there, and that means there will be a lot of attributes in that class, right? So that will become difficult for you to actually keep track of which value you are actually changing and where its impact might go. So it will become a very difficult to actually keep track of those things. Again, since this class is doing a lot of stuff, so there are chances that a lot of change requests can come to this class, and this again can become a problem when there are separate persons working on the same class, and they're trying to say work on a piece of code, and they are impacting one another because they are thinking differently, have a different approach. So they might actually create a merge conflict, which will not be a simpler one to actually solve, and can actually create a lot of trouble, and a lot of time can be consumed in solving this simple thing, which could have been avoided, say, by simply breaking this code into a multiple classes. Because since you are, this problem is actually related to single responsibility principle, large class. So if your class is actually doing a multiple responsibilities, this problem arrives only then. Okay, because since your class is doing a lot of stuff, a lot of kind of responsibilities it is playing, so chances are that the changes can come for different responsibilities to a different developers. That they're doing different changes to it, and since they have a lot of shared code, this will create problem to the team actually. Okay, so how to fix them? Okay, so we again simple using inheritance if your language allows that. Okay, decomposing the class into separate classes. Okay, so we can have a lot of classes out of a single class. Say we have some class which is actually scheduling tasks. Okay, so and after scheduling the class the task, it is also actually checking something. I've actually seen a lot of code where I've seen that people in write in controller itself a lot of logic. Controllers, by the way, are just to route the request and do no business logic there. But I've seen a lot of people doing validation itself in there. Also, sometimes even doing some business logic stuff there itself in the controller itself. So that way you are actually breaking the SRP principle, and you should actually use a service class there instead of a validation layer itself to validate your stuff, because controller is just to route the request. The service class is for the business logic, and those validation layer is for validating your request, right? So that's where I have seen the simple example where we can actually break a large class into small class. So as I mentioned earlier, that there is a 300 line of code limit. It's not actually a fixed limit. Maybe in 100 line itself, you are actually breaking that principle, right? So whenever you see a certain class, large class sometime, so you should actually, this is just to say that an alert should go in your mind and you should be worried about what you are actually doing there. Okay, so so these are the three, I will say, the largest and the easiest to understand code smells, and should the most avoidable kind of things that we should actually avoid at any cost. Okay, so let's move on to. Okay, so there are a lot of sportsmen, so I have not actually created slides for every one of them, and we can actually discuss them here itself. If the need be, we can actually do a separate session itself for it. Okay. Since I don't expect it would be unrealistic to expect that with so much of information coming at your way, you will be able to retain all of that. So I have started with the simpler one, and I will mention all the other here, not all the other, most of the other one here, and we'll discuss some of them as well. But if there is a need or demand, then we can actually have a separate session as well. Okay. So like so yeah, the list like long parameter list. My long parameter list, as a name itself, is quite clear. Whenever we are calling a method and there are a lot of parameters that we need to pass to it, then it is a smell and it is pointing at something wrong with your approach. Okay, because if there are a lot of parameters being passed there, there is one thing that you are doing a lot of stuff in that method. Because if you are not doing a lot of stuff, then why would you need so many parameters in there, right? So it will actually lead to another problem called long method problem in most of the cases. So or also long parameter list might even lead to long method, and long method itself can lead to long large class problem. Okay, so a long parameter list is something that we should be keep an eye on. And in Java, actually, what is the preferred number is that 4 or 5 maximum, 4 or 5 parameters that we should actually pass as the parameter in the methods. Okay, and second one is divergent change. Okay, so divergent change is something like it is result of earlier code smells actually. As I was telling you that sometimes we have duplicate codes and sorry, duplicate code, large class in itself. A large class would that would mean is that a lot of kind of changes are coming at the same place. Okay, same code base. We are having a lot of change requests coming to it. As I already mentioned, in large class, there are scenarios where class is doing a lot of stuff, so there are chances that multiple request changes can come for the features, for multiple features, but the same place in the code. Okay, so that would create the problem that we already discussed. Say the different developers are working on it together in a team, and when they are going to merge their code, so this could actually create a lot of problem while merging the code. Okay, so this is a divergent change code smell. This could happen because of long method itself, plus even at a large class itself. So this these are not actually we should actually be careful. These are closely linked to single responsibility principle itself. Okay, shotgun surgery, it is again it's closely linked to duplicate code smell. As I have already said that there are chances that shotgun surgery, as you must be aware of how the shotgun works, right? If you fire a shotgun, then it is not actually a very targeted armament. It's actually fires its bullet and it spreads to a lot of places and it does a damage to a lot of stuff in one go. So it is similar to that. When we are actually doing some change and that change needs to be done at a lot of places. Okay, so that if we these are actually something that we find in maintenance phases like divergent change and shotgun surgery. If code is already developed and you have a request something for something, and for that you need to make changes a lot of stuff, a lot of places, then that is called shotgun surgery, which actually can be due to later because of the duplicate code as well, and even with due to the other codes called primitive obsession, which we'll discuss briefly discuss that as well. Feature envy is another bad practice that I've seen even in code base of companies like Microsoft. We are using the SDK of Microsoft Graph, and we see that they are actually allowing you to access the fields directly to you. Okay, so you can actually access them directly, the fields directly of that class. you don't need to actually use some getter or a method to access them. So that is feature envy. It is it's actually a lot more than that what I just said. But since I have already said that it's a lot of information and it might not be able to retain, just going up, giving a brief overview there. Similarly, it is a like primitive obsession is something like I've seen people not trying to create objects for things which actually demand their own objects. For example, say I've seen a lot of people storing URLs straight away into the databases. They store URL as a string. String is a primitive, right? And this will create a lot of problem if you say if you want to access different part of the URL and retain different, because a URL can constitute a lot of information in it. Okay, so storing it simply as a string, it is quite easier while developing it. But if you want to retrieve a lot of information from it, you will need to do a lot of logic post to break that and retrieve that information from it. Okay, so if it is stored in a say in an object which has parts divided for it, so it will create less problem for you while working on it. Similarly, I've seen what I can say. Even I have used these bad practices sometimes, switch statements. These are quite easy to actually understand as a developer. Whenever you have a lot of situation, you could go for the switch, even if as there. But we should actually avoid it because there is a reason that switch statement is bad. Actually, we should avoid it, and we could use as a substitute to it. We could use something like command design pattern there, or even we could simply use a map where keys are put into the switch as a cases are put as a key. And okay, so time is going to run out in 10 minutes. So uh, let's just wrap it here. We'll go through the name only. Parallel inheritance hierarchies. Okay, so these are different kind of languages like Python. We can have multiple inheritance there, and they use a concept called MRO to resolve the hierarchy. So it is very difficult. Actually, it can create a lot of problem for you to actually understand which code is going to get executed. So we should avoid that. Lazy class again, speculative generality. These are the names actually of which I myself am not aware of uh, two, three of them. So I will just share them with you. Okay. If anybody has a question, okay. So let me just stop.